The first warning came from a kid in a black vest who couldn't have been older than 22. I'd pulled up to the Oriole Atrium just after 6, the kind of hotel lounge place with glass doors that open before you touch them, like the building is eager to please. I wasn't there to drink. I was there because my wife, Celeste, had told me she was meeting her friend Brina for a quick catch-up, and the lie had that familiar smoothness, too polished, too rehearsed. I handed my keys to the valet. He glanced at the make, scanned the dash, then looked up at me with the bright, harmless confidence of someone who thinks adults are all one category. "Sir," he said, "you'll want to park on the east side if you're waiting. Ms. Celeste hates when someone boxes her in." My hand paused on the ticket stub. "Ms. who?" I asked. He blinked. "Celeste. Sorry, she's inside. Came through about 15 minutes ago with Mr. Kincaid." I didn't ask him to repeat it. I didn't need to. The name hit clean. "Mr. Kincaid," I said, letting it sit between us. "Yeah," the kid replied, nodding like we were talking about a regular. "Tall guy. Suit. The one with the driver. They come in a lot. He tips like he's trying to buy forgiveness." He smiled, like that last line was funny. I stared at him until his smile softened into uncertainty. "That your," he started. "That's my wife," I said. His face drained in real time. "Oh. I didn't know. I'm sorry, sir." "It's fine," I said, and it was the truth. Not because it was fine. Because the moment had become useful. I took the ticket and walked toward the entrance with the kind of calm I usually reserve for business meetings. Inside, the air smelled like citrus oil and money. Low music. Soft lighting. People speaking in voices designed not to carry. Celeste wasn't at the bar. She was in a half-booth near the back, angled away from the room like she'd chosen a defensible position. Across from her sat a man in a charcoal suit, hair silvered at the temples, posture relaxed, eyes moving slowly, like he was used to rooms adjusting themselves around him. Graham Kincaid. I didn't know his name until that second. But I knew his type. Businessman, local power, the kind who shakes hands like he's awarding you something. Celeste leaned in toward him when she spoke. Not flirting exactly, worse. Familiar. He said something, and she laughed with her whole face. The laugh she used to give me in our kitchen when we were still a unit. I didn't go to them. I didn't interrupt. I didn't need a scene, I needed a pattern. I turned, walked past the lounge as if I'd changed my mind, and sat in the lobby where I could see the elevator bank and the side corridor leading toward private dining. 2 minutes later, Celeste stood, adjusted her purse strap, and let Kincaid's hand rest at her lower back for just a second too long. Then they walked out together, not toward the main dining area, but toward the side corridor where staff didn't look up. The valet kid was right about one thing, they'd done this before. I left without being seen. In the car, my phone buzzed. Celeste's name lit up the screen like an insult. I answered. "Yeah." Her voice was warm. "Careful. Hey, Brina is running late. We might grab a quick bite. Don't wait up, okay?" I stared at the red light ahead of me. "Sure," I said. "You okay?" She asked, as if concern was a reflex she could still deploy. "Fine," I replied. "Enjoy." She hesitated, then hung up. "No, I love you." No extra reassurance. She didn't want to add details that could be tested later. I drove home and did the one thing that kept me from ruining my own leverage. I acted normal. When Celeste came in near 10, she smelled like the lounge, citrus, perfume, and something sharper underneath. She kissed my cheek and asked if I'd eaten. "Yeah," I said. She watched my face, searching for the usual reaction, curiosity, mild irritation, a question she could answer with a soft lie. I gave her nothing. I've been thinking a lot lately, she said, hanging her coat like she was putting away the night. About what I want. About who I am. There it was, her favorite shield. Good, I said. Figure it out. She blinked. That's supportive. It's practical, I replied. She smiled, relieved, and went to shower. I opened the drawer of my desk, pulled out a notebook I hadn't used in years, and wrote 4 lines, clean and unemotional. Oriole Atrium, 6:12 p.m. Valet, Mr. Kincaid, driver, frequent. Observed, Celeste plus Graham Kincaid, private corridor. Phone lie, Brina running late. Then I left space beneath it. Because if a man like Graham Kincaid was involved, this wasn't a reckless fling. It was managed. Scheduled. Protected. And if he was tipping like he was buying forgiveness, it meant he already knew what he was doing. So did she. Celeste didn't change overnight. She didn't have to. She was already living in the version of our marriage where explanations were optional and my role was to stay reasonable. The next morning she made coffee like nothing had happened. She talked about a project at work, complained about traffic on Hollowgate Parkway, asked me if I could pick up detergent on my way home. Normal questions, normal tone, like she was testing whether I'd noticed the seam. I said yes to everything. That bothered her more than suspicion would have. You're quiet, she said, watching me over the rim of her mug. I'm listening, I replied. She smiled, relieved, and glanced down at her phone. Her phone never left her hand anymore. If she set it down, it was face down. If she walked to another room, it went with her. That wasn't paranoia. That was practice. I didn't try to unlock it. I didn't need to. People don't hide everything, they just hide the part they think you'll look for. So I watched what she thought was harmless. Her calendar was shared on the fridge, old school, paper grid with neat handwriting. She used it to look organized. She used it to look honest. Most people assume a calendar is a confession. It's not. It's a mask. On Wednesday she had written, Brina, Atrium, 6 o'clock, in small letters, like it meant nothing. The word atrium was deliberate. A place name that sounded like architecture, not a lounge. A cover that could pass if repeated. Brina was real. That's why Brina was useful. I called Brina that afternoon. Not accusatory. Not emotional. I called like a husband who wanted to be polite. Brina answered on the second ring, cheerful. Hey. What's up? Quick question, I said. You and Celeste still meeting tonight? A pause. Not long. But real. Tonight? Brina repeated, buying time. Yeah, I said. She said you were catching up. Brina's voice shifted. Softer. Careful. Oh. No, not tonight. We grabbed lunch earlier this week. Why? I let my silence do the work. Brina filled it, because people hate being responsible for what they know. Is everything okay? She asked. Fine, I replied. Just syncing schedules. Brina hesitated again, then said, Celeste's been going through something. That's what she says, I answered. Another pause. Look, Brina started, then stopped. I don't want to be in the middle. You already are, I said calmly. You just didn't choose it. I ended the call before she could correct herself. That gave me 2 things, Celeste had used Brina as cover, and Brina had enough awareness to feel guilty. Guilt makes people inconsistent. Inconsistency makes people useful. That night, Celeste left at 5:40, dressed nicer than catching up required. Not glamorous, just intentional. Hair done. Earrings she didn't wear to the grocery store. A coat that belonged in a lobby with glass doors. See you later, she said, leaning in to kiss me. I turned my head slightly so it landed on my cheek, not my mouth. She didn't comment, but her eyes sharpened for half a second. I waited 10 minutes after she left, then drove to the Oriole Atrium and parked on the east side like the valet had suggested. Kincaid's driver was already there in a black sedan, engine running, windows tinted. The driver didn't get out. He didn't need to. The car itself was a statement: someone important is inside, and the world will wait. Celeste arrived at 6:11 and didn't look around. She walked straight in like she belonged there. At 6:18, Kincaid entered through the side door, not the front. Same suit. Same calm. Same ownership of space. They didn't meet at the bar. They didn't flirt publicly. They walked the corridor again, the one leading away from casual witnesses. I took 2 photos from inside my car, zoomed, steady hands. Nothing graphic. Just proximity. Just proof of intent. Then I left. At 7:32, Celeste texted me, "Brina and I ended up talking forever. Heading home soon." I didn't reply. When she came home, she tried to stage normal again. Shoes off. Coat hung. Smile placed. "Sorry it ran late," she said. I nodded. "Brina okay?" Her eyes flicked, micro-panic, then settled. "Yeah. Just, life stuff." I drank water slowly, watching her watch me. "You're acting weird," she said. "I'm acting patient," I replied. "That's not the same," she snapped, then softened her tone fast. "I mean, I can feel you judging me." "I'm not judging," I said. "I'm tracking what you say." Her face tightened. "Tracking?" "Listening," I corrected. "Closely." She stepped toward me, voice gentler now, the tone she used when she wanted to steer me back into being manageable. "I'm just trying to figure out what I want," she whispered. I met her eyes. "Then stop renting other people's lives to test yours." Her breath caught. For the first time since I'd known her, she didn't have a clean answer ready. She turned away, pretending to fuss with her purse, and said, too quickly, "I'm going to shower." When the bathroom door closed, I opened my notebook and wrote. Brina cover confirmed, Brina denies meeting. Oriole Atrium repeat, side corridor. Text lie, Brina and I. Photos captured, 6:18 entry. Then I wrote one more line, because it was the first real midpoint shift forming in my head. If Kincaid is paying for privacy, he'll pay for silence. Once I knew Celeste was lying deliberately, I stopped treating her like the center of the problem. She wasn't. She was the corridor. Graham Kincaid was the room. Men like Kincaid don't sneak. They arrange. They outsource risk, delegate inconvenience, and build layers between themselves and consequence. Which meant if I wanted to understand what I was dealing with, I needed to look past Celeste's emotions and at his infrastructure. The driver was the first layer. Black sedan, same position, same timing. Always parked where cameras were decorative, not functional. I watched him twice more that week, each time without Celeste knowing I was anywhere nearby. The driver never left the car. Never scrolled his phone. Never looked bored. He sat like a man being paid to notice everything. That told me Kincaid valued control more than discretion. The second layer was routine. Celeste started repeating days. Tuesday evenings. Thursday lunches. One Sunday afternoon that she framed as errands. Same clothes category. Same perfume. Same calm when she left, same mild exhaustion when she came back. If she were careless, she would have changed things up. But this wasn't carelessness. This was managed exposure. I began writing it all down, not as a diary, but as a ledger. Tuesday, Atrium, 6 to 8 o'clock. Thursday, lunch, returns at 3:10. Sunday, errands, no receipts. Receipts mattered. Celeste was the kind of woman who always came home with proof of productivity. Grocery bags. Dry cleaning tickets. Small, unnecessary confirmations. On Sundays, she had none. The third layer was reputation. Graham Kincaid didn't hide because he didn't need to. A man doesn't offer privacy, he assumes it. I learned his name officially from Northwell Capital Group, plastered across a downtown building I'd driven past for years without caring. Private equity. Real estate. Municipal contracts. He wasn't just wealthy. He was embedded. That was when the shape of the endgame started to form. Kincaid wasn't risking his marriage, his money, or his name for Celeste. He was renting her attention. And men who rent expect clean exits. Which meant, eventually, he would want the noise gone. That noise was me. The confirmation came accidentally. Celeste left her laptop open on the dining table while she showered, a mistake born of comfort, not sloppiness. I wasn't looking for messages. I didn't need to. What caught my eye was a calendar notification on the corner of the screen. G.K. Private dining, 12/30-inch. No name spelled out. Just initials. Like a shared language. I didn't touch the computer. I didn't scroll. I didn't read further. I memorized it, then walked away. At dinner that night, I asked casually, "You working tomorrow?" She hesitated just long enough to be measurable. Half day. Lunch? I asked. Probably just a salad, she said. Why? No reason, I replied. She studied me. You've been distant. I've been consistent, I said. You're not used to it. That line landed harder than I expected. She pushed her plate away. You don't get to punish me for figuring myself out, she said. I'm not punishing you, I replied. I'm stepping back so you can see what you're choosing. She laughed bitterly. You think this is a choice? You think I planned this? Yes, I said. You planned it enough to schedule it. Her face changed then, not anger, not guilt. Fear. Who have you been talking to? She asked. No one, I replied. You've been talking plenty. She stood abruptly. I'm not doing this tonight. You never are, I said. She went to bed early. I stayed up, staring at the ledger, adding a new line at the bottom. Kincaid initials appear on personal calendar, private dining. Then I added a note beneath it, smaller. He's careful. Which means he's reachable. That was the moment the story stopped being about betrayal and started being about negotiation. Not between Celeste and me. Between Kincaid and consequences. And I knew enough about men like him to understand one thing clearly. If I stayed quiet long enough, he'd come to me himself. Because silence, to people like Graham Kincaid, is never free. Graham Kincaid made his first move without realizing it was one. It wasn't a call. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even directed at me. It came through Celeste, filtered and softened the way men like him prefer their problems handled. She brought it up on a Sunday morning while we were pretending to share a routine. We were in the kitchen. Coffee brewing. Windows open. The house still felt like ours then, or at least she wanted it to. Graham thinks I should be more careful, she said, stirring sugar she didn't need. About appearances. I didn't look up. Graham who? She stiffened. Just a fraction. You know who. I nodded slowly. What does he think you should be careful about? She sighed, already tired of managing the truth. You. This. The tension. I turned and looked at her then. Really looked. So he knows about me, I said. She didn't answer immediately. That was answer enough. Yes, she admitted. He knows you're unhappy. Unhappy, I repeated. That's the word. He doesn't want trouble, she said quickly. He has a lot at stake. So do I replied. She laughed softly, like I'd made a joke. Not like he does. That was the moment I understood exactly how she'd been framing me to him. Not as a husband. Not as a risk. As an inconvenience. A variable that could be smoothed out. I took a sip of coffee. Did he ask you to say something specific? She hesitated, then nodded. He thinks we should handle this privately. Like adults. I leaned back against the counter. Define handle. She avoided my eyes. He said, maybe you'd be willing to be discreet. For everyone's sake. There it was. Not an offer yet. A test. Discreet about what? I asked. She looked up, irritated now. You know what? About him. About us. I waited a beat. And what did you say? I said I didn't know, she snapped. I said you're unpredictable lately. I smiled faintly. That must have worried him. It did, she said, then stopped, realizing what she'd revealed. I didn't push. I didn't need to. The fact that Kincaid was worried was the leverage announcing itself. Later that afternoon, my phone rang from an unfamiliar number. I answered. Yes. Mr. Hale, a man said, voice smooth, professional. This is Marcus Reed. I represent Mr. Graham Kincaid. Of course he did. I was hoping we could talk, Marcus continued. Nothing formal. Just clarity. I looked at the yard through the window. Celeste was outside, pacing, phone in hand. Watching. About what? I asked. About expectations, Marcus said. And boundaries. I was quiet long enough for him to fill the silence. Mr. Kincaid values privacy, he added. He's prepared to ensure there's no disruption. I value accuracy, I replied. Those aren't the same thing. A pause. The first crack. We're not adversaries, Marcus said carefully. No, I agreed. You're early. Another pause. Longer. Would you be open to meeting? He asked. Yes, I said. If your client attends. Silence again. Then, I'll relay that. Do, I replied, and ended the call. When I stepped outside, Celeste was waiting. Who was that? She asked. Your future, I said. It finally noticed me. She went pale. What are you doing? I met her eyes. What you should have done a year ago. Making things explicit. That night, I wrote a single line in the ledger. Kincaid aware, legal intermediary contacted, privacy concern confirmed. Then, beneath it, smaller. He's ready to negotiate. He just doesn't know the price yet. And neither did I. But I knew one thing for certain. Men like Graham Kincaid don't ask for discretion unless they're afraid of exposure. And fear, when it comes wrapped in money and lawyers, always comes with a number attached. Marcus Reed suggested Lathrop Square, a private conference suite above a members-only club that pretended it was a library. Leather chairs. Frosted glass. No signage. The kind of place where conversations were designed to disappear. Graham Kincaid arrived 5 minutes late on purpose. He entered without apology, jacket unbuttoned, posture relaxed, eyes already assessing the room for leverage. He didn't offer his hand. He didn't need to. Men like him assume acknowledgement is a courtesy they can withhold. Mr. Hale, he said, nodding once. Thank you for coming. I was invited, I replied. That's different. Marcus took a seat to Kincaid's right, tablet ready, smile neutral. I sat across from them and waited. Silence is useful when the other side expects you to speak first. Kincaid cleared his throat. I understand you're upset. No, I said. I'm informed. He smiled thinly. Semantics. Sequence, I corrected. Marcus leaned in. Let's keep this constructive. Mr. Kincaid values discretion. He believes there's a way to ensure everyone moves forward without unnecessary damage. Kincaid nodded, as if the word damage belonged to him. I don't want your marriage, Kincaid said, finally meeting my eyes. I don't want noise. I want this contained. You already had that, I said. You lost it when you decided I wouldn't notice. His jaw tightened. Not anger. Calculation. We're prepared to make this worth your while, Marcus said, sliding a single sheet of paper across the table. No letterhead. No numbers yet. Just terms. Silence. Non-disparagement. Permanent. I read it carefully. You're asking for erasure. We're offering closure, Kincaid replied. For you, I said. At my expense. Kincaid leaned back. Everything has a price. I closed the folder and pushed it back untouched. Then don't guess mine. The room cooled. Marcus shifted, choosing his next words like tools. What would make you comfortable? Marcus asked. I looked at Kincaid. Truth in writing. Admissions. Timelines. And a number that reflects the risk you're avoiding. Kincaid laughed softly. You think you can dictate terms? I think you already showed up, I replied. That's agreement enough to start. Silence again. Longer this time. Kincaid exhaled. You want money. I want certainty, I said. Money measures it. Marcus glanced at Kincaid. A small nod passed between them. 2 million, Kincaid said, casually. For your silence. Clean transfer. Immediate. The number hung in the air, heavy and precise. I didn't react. Reaction inflates numbers. Stillness tests them. For what? I asked. For your agreement not to disclose, Marcus said quickly. To anyone. Ever. And Celeste, I added. Kincaid's eyes flicked. What about her? She gets nothing from me, I said. No cover. No protection. No narrative. Your money buys my silence, not my participation. Marcus hesitated. Kincaid considered. Fine, Kincaid said. She's your problem. No, I replied. She's your mistake. Kincaid stood. Draft it. Marcus nodded, already typing. As they worked, I watched Kincaid. The calm had returned, but it was thinner now. The number had changed the temperature. He'd expected bargaining. He hadn't expected boundaries. When the draft was ready, Marcus slid it across. I read every line. Adjusted 3 clauses. Added 1 sentence about penalties that made Marcus swallow hard. Kincaid signed without reading my additions. That told me everything. I signed last. Outside, the city sounded the same. Cars. Voices. Life continuing, indifferent to private deals. Kincaid paused before getting into his car. You're making a smart choice, he said. I'm making a final one, I replied. He nodded once and left. I went home and packed Celeste's things into boxes. Neatly. Methodically. No notes. No explanations. Money doesn't fix betrayal. But it does end negotiations. The money arrived 3 days later. No ceremony. No message. Just a wire confirmation from a private account routed through 2 intermediaries, clean and unmistakable. $2 million doesn't announce itself emotionally. It settles. It changes the gravity of the room without making a sound. I didn't feel relief. I felt finality. I printed the confirmation, added it to a new folder, not the ledger, not the notebook. This one was thinner. Precise. A record of closure, not discovery. Celeste came home that night unaware that her future had already been negotiated without her. She dropped her bag by the door and looked at the boxes stacked neatly along the wall. Labeled. Taped. Controlled. "What's this?" she asked. "Your things," I replied. Her face tightened. "You can't just." "I can," I said. And I did. She stepped closer, lowering her voice as if volume was the problem. "Did you talk to him?" "Yes." Her breath caught. "What did he say?" "He listened," I replied. That was enough. She searched my face, trying to locate the version of me she'd been managing for years. It wasn't there anymore. "Did you tell him everything?" she asked. "No," I said. "I told him nothing." Her eyes narrowed. "Then why does it feel like I lost?" "Because you outsourced the ending," I replied. "And he bought it." She laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. "You think money fixes this?" "No," I said. "It finishes it." She went very still. "How much?" I didn't answer. "That means a lot," she said. "That means you sold me." I met her eyes. "You rented yourself out long before I priced the silence." Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked around the house like she was seeing it for the first time, as a place she no longer occupied. "He promised me stability," she said quietly. "He rented you certainty," I replied. "It expires." She swallowed. "What happens now?" "You leave," I said. "Tonight." She stood there, stunned, then angry. "You don't get to do this unilaterally." "I already did," I replied. "You just weren't in the meeting." She packed without speaking. Took the boxes. Didn't cry. Pride was the last thing she had that felt intact. At the door, she turned back. "You think you won?" I shook my head. "I think you stopped mattering to my decisions." She left. The following weeks were quiet in a way that felt intentional. No calls from Kincaid. No follow-up from Marcus. The agreement held because it had to. Men like Kincaid don't buy silence unless they intend to trust it. Trust, for them, is transactional. I moved the money once, into an account that didn't touch my daily life. I didn't upgrade anything. I didn't celebrate. I didn't talk about it. Silence has weight when it's paid for. Brina reached out once. "She says you're cold," she wrote. I didn't reply. Elena called a few days later. "She's angry. Says you chose money over truth." I answered honestly. "I chose permanence over chaos." Elena sighed. "I don't know how to explain that to her." "You don't have to," I said. "That's her work now." One evening, weeks later, I saw Kincaid's sedan again, this time alone, idling at a red light across town. Different context. Same posture. The driver didn't look at me. He didn't need to. We'd already agreed on who I was in his story. I drove on. The notebook stayed in the drawer. The ledger stayed closed. The silence stayed intact. People think blackmail is about leverage. It's not. It's about ending a conversation forever, and getting paid to never reopen it. And that was exactly what I'd done. End of part. June 8th. Say next part when you're ready. Celeste didn't disappear after she left. She unraveled. I heard it secondhand, the way consequences usually arrive, through people who want to be helpful without choosing sides. Brina first. Then Elena. Then a man I barely knew who worked 2 floors below Celeste at her firm. "She's spiraling," Brina told me over the phone, voice low. She thought this would land differently. Of course she did, I replied. Celeste had believed the affair was leverage. That proximity to power translated into protection. She never understood the hierarchy. Graham Kincaid hadn't invested in her life, he'd rented a portion of it. When the lease ended, she was excess inventory. Kincaid didn't call her anymore. Not once. That detail mattered more than anything else. She tried to reach him, at first subtly, messages framed as updates, then as concern. Then came the questions disguised as nostalgia. When those failed, she escalated. Voicemails. Late-night calls. Silence on the other end. That silence wasn't mine. It was his. Men like Kincaid don't explain exits. They execute them. Celeste showed up at my house one afternoon without warning. No boxes this time. No pretense. "You planned this," she said, standing on the porch like she'd been evicted from a version of herself. "No," I replied. I responded to it. Her eyes were wild now. Uncontained. He cut me off. "Yes," I said. "You told him to." "No," I said again. "You became inconvenient." She laughed, sharp and broken. "You're enjoying this." "I'm understanding it," I said. "That's different." She stepped closer. "You took the money." "Yes." "And you didn't even protect me," she whispered. "That was never part of the agreement," I replied. "You weren't the one paying." Her hands shook. "I gave him everything." I held her gaze. "You gave him access. He gave you an illusion." She stared at me like she wanted to strike me, then slumped against the railing instead. "He said he cared," she muttered. "He said what you needed to hear," I replied. "So you'd stay quiet while it lasted." She slid down until she was sitting on the porch step, head in her hands. "I thought I was choosing power," she said. "You were choosing proximity," I replied. "That's not the same thing." She stayed there a long time, breathing unevenly, until finally she stood. "I don't know who I am anymore," she said. "That's the first honest thing you've said in a year," I replied. She looked at me then, really looked, and something settled in her face, not peace, but comprehension. "You were never supposed to win," she said quietly. "I didn't," I replied. I exited. She left without another word. That night, I opened the thin folder again and reread the agreement. Not because I doubted it. Because I wanted to remember what finality looked like in writing. $2 million hadn't bought my happiness. It had bought my absence. That distinction mattered. I changed my routines. New gym. New cafe. New routes home. Not out of fear, out of hygiene. I wasn't interested in sharing space with a past that wanted attention. The messages stopped coming. The silence held. And somewhere in that quiet, I realized something that surprised me. I didn't miss her explanations. They had been the loudest thing in the room for years. Now there was space. One part remained. Not hers. Mine. The money didn't change my mornings. That was how I knew it hadn't changed me. I still woke before the alarm. Still drank coffee standing at the counter. Still read the news without remembering any of it. $2 million sat elsewhere, sealed off like something volatile. I didn't check it. I didn't calculate what it could become. I treated it like a document already filed, useful only if reopened, and I had no intention of doing that. Celeste faded from my life the way people do when there's nothing left to argue about. No messages. No surprise visits. No third-party appeals asking me to be kind. When a person runs out of narrative, they eventually run out of audience. Hers moved on to other emergencies. Graham Kincaid kept his side of the agreement without flourish. No confirmation call. No satisfaction check. No reminder of consequences. Silence, uninterrupted, which told me everything about how he viewed the transaction. It wasn't personal. It was maintenance. He bought quiet the way he bought buildings, decisively, then never thought about it again. That was fine with me. I filed the agreement with a neutral third party, where it would stay dormant unless disturbed. I closed the thin folder and put it in the back of a safe that already held other finished things, titles, certificates, the last I'd written before I knew how the year would end. I didn't feel victorious. I felt unburdened. A month later, I ran into Marcus Reed by accident outside a downtown office tower. Same suit. Same practiced neutrality. He paused when he saw me. "Everything satisfactory?" he asked, out of habit more than concern. "Yes," I replied. "Is it for you?" He smiled thinly. "Mr. Kincaid appreciates professionalism." "So do I," I said. Marcus hesitated, then said, "You handled this, unusually." I met his eyes. "You mean I didn't beg or threaten?" "I mean you didn't need to," he replied. I left him there, because conversations like that don't improve with extension. The last time I heard Celeste's name, it was incidental. Two women at a cafe behind me were talking too loudly, trading second-hand news like currency. "She thought she was special," one of them said. "Turns out she was replaceable." I didn't turn around. I didn't need to confirm it was the same Celeste. There are patterns that repeat without invitation. I paid my bill and left. People assume the end of a story like this requires a moral. A lesson. A clean line about love or justice or money. It doesn't. The truth is simpler. Celeste cheated because she wanted access. Kincaid paid because he wanted insulation. I accepted because I wanted the noise to stop permanently. Everyone got exactly what they asked for. Just not what they imagined. I never spoke about the affair. Not to friends. Not to family. Not to strangers fishing for details. Silence isn't hard when it's chosen. It's exhausting only when you're pretending. I chose it. And when I finally removed Celeste's name from the last remaining document that carried it, there was no surge of emotion. No grief. No relief. Just alignment. The story didn't end loudly. It closed. And that, more than the money, was the part no one else could buy back. If you want more stories that spark your imagination, subscribe to the channel and come back for the next chapter. There's always another tale waiting.